I think I read the right gospel, Bill? I didn't. Okay, well, you can change it, okay? And I just want to remark that Bill and I started together in 1964 in the seminary, and with classmates for all those years. But we took about 35 years ago, maybe 30, something like that. We took a doctorate program, and we went through a really lovely program. But I didn't want to do the work at the end. I didn't care if I got the title, but Bill cared about the title. So he is wearing his title clothes, and he asked me, shall I wear my hat? And I said, you must wear your hat. And so I present to you Bill, who will preach tonight. Thank you. And and if you need to read the other gospel, go ahead.
No, we'll let it go. The references to the gospel will still work. We Catholics begin all our prayers in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. But who or what is the Holy Spirit? Perry and I, as he said, have known each other since we entered the high school seminary at 14 years of age. In my calculations, that was about 20 years ago, more or less. During our seminary classes, whenever the Trinity was discussed, the triangle was used as a symbol for God. Just as there are 3 sides or angles to a triangle, so there are 3 persons in one God. But who is the Holy Spirit? We were presented with 2 ways of understanding the third person in God. First, there was God the Father, the Creator, God the Son, the Redeemer, and God the Holy Spirit, the Sanctifier, the one who makes us holy. Second was Father the Creator, Son the Redeemer, and Holy Spirit, who is the love between the Father and the Son, the love that holds God together, holds the Trinity together. I have to say that although both of these ideas might be theologically correct, neither one of them particularly excited me. But last week I was thinking about the Holy Spirit as love, and I was reminded of a song. Changed by your love, changed from above, I've been revitalized, I have new shiny eyes, changed by your love, changed by your love, changed from above. If you hadn't rescued me, I don't know where I'd be, changed by your love. That song was recorded by Gladys Knight back in 1981. She was singing about the love between 2 human beings. But it seems to me that the song is equally at home in church and equally applies to God. Because the love that is the Holy Spirit is the change agent in our lives. In fact, that love, the Holy Spirit, is also the change agent in God. Now, some people think that God never changes, but that is not entirely correct. God existed before creation, but the love that is the Holy Spirit could not be contained within God. God had to change. God had to create. He had to share that love, and so he began a process of evolution that has resulted in the magnificent and vast, expansive universe around us. He breathed his Spirit into the primordial waters, and the ancient oceans began to teem with life. Wherever there is loving change, we find the Holy Spirit. Ezekiel was led by the Spirit into a vast valley of dried, broken bones. A hand here, a foot there, head way off in the corner. They were disconnected. But the Spirit of God was able to connect those bones together again, give them sinews and muscles and flesh and skin. Ezekiel saw that the change agent of God, the Holy Spirit, turns death into life. Today we celebrate Pentecost, the descent of the Holy Spirit upon the apostles. I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that Pentecost was a one-time event. It was not. Neither is it an annual event that we celebrate in church. The gift of the Holy Spirit is an event without end. And it changes us. It changes us if we can accept it. The apostles had spent several years with Jesus. They saw him preach good news to the poor, heal the sick, welcome the stranger, embrace the sinner. But they did not understand. They locked themselves away from the crowds because they were afraid. They were afraid of dying just like Jesus did. But as we hear in the gospel, the one we should have heard in the gospel today, Jesus had promised to send them an advocate, the Holy Spirit, to teach them everything. The change agent of God, the Holy Spirit, turns fear into courage. And when they received of the Spirit, they were emboldened and began to fearlessly preach the good news to throngs of people outside, and a church was born. Throughout church history, the Holy Spirit has always been present, but it has often been ignored or rejected. It is not always easy to be filled with the Holy Spirit. So let me ask a question. How many of you believe that every person is made in the image and likeness of God? Please raise your hands. I believe it. I was hoping a few more people would believe it, but this is a good start. I suggest that these days we are not unlike the apostles before Pentecost. We too are afraid. We fear strangers and aliens and refugees, especially those who speak languages we do not know. Some of us even have contempt for the stranger, as if no one belongs here but us. So what would happen if we received the Holy Spirit? Pope Francis gave one answer to that question. In 2016, while the world was contemptuously closing its borders to refugees, he opened the doors of the Vatican and invited refugees from Syrian families to live there. Over the years, he invited even more. At the same time, he challenged all of us to open our homes to refugees. Yet I do not know one family, not one, who did that. Not one who responded, unless inaction is also a response. Perhaps we were too afraid. Perhaps we have forgotten the words of Jesus, "When I was a stranger, you welcomed me." Perhaps we are victims of the conceit that we are the only people who belong here. Perhaps we have forgotten that we are only caretakers, that the whole earth, including this land, belongs to God alone. Perhaps some of us even have contempt for the Pope's suggestion. But the change agent of God, of the Holy Spirit, turns contempt into love. I am not unmindful of the social and governmental complications surrounding immigrants and refugees. In John's Gospel, when Jesus promised to send the Spirit, he called it the Spirit of truth. It has often been said that the first casualty of war is truth. I would add that the first casualty of ignorance also is truth. In today's world, governments lie to their people with abandon, often lying about other countries and other peoples, even lying about themselves. The agencies that should hold world leaders to account, the press, instead acquiesce. And when people only hear lies, the lies become their truth, and the real truth becomes a casualty. So let me offer a second answer to the question, what would happen if we received the Holy Spirit? It is possible that we would respond like the apostles and speak the deeds of God's power, that we would proclaim all people as created in God's image, that we would acknowledge all people as sisters and brothers. We might even open our homes to provide sanctuary to the unwanted, because the change agent of God, the Holy Spirit, turns deceit into truth. God has an end game in play. He bestows the Holy Spirit so that we will not take any part of this world, any part of our lives, for granted. He seeks to instill in us a gratitude that the world does not and cannot know, an appreciation for his love, his mercy, his presence in us and one another, a joy for the gift of every person who comes into our lives, no matter how they come into our lives. God seeks to enable us to live up to the truth that all are created in his image, that no one person and no one group of people is better than another. The change agent of God, that is the Holy Spirit, turns thoughtlessness into thankfulness. Looking back to our seminary days, I realized that our professor was correct when he said that the Holy Spirit is the uncontainable love of God, of the Trinity. Every action of God, from creation to resurrection to Pentecost, has been an act of love, a love that comes from God, a love that draws each of us into God. But love and truth cannot be separated. If we have truly received the Holy Spirit, we must declare opposition to the unchristian and immoral actions of our leaders. We must speak out against the lies that spew forth from Washington and other world capitals. We must reject the lie that this land belongs to us alone. We must counter the lie that aliens and refugees are not equal to us. We must voice that we are responsible for one another. We must speak the universal truth of brotherhood, sisterhood, and family. Life, courage, love, truth, thankfulness. These are all signs that we have received the Holy Spirit. They are signs that we are being led to God's end game. And when our days near their end, perhaps each of us will be able to sing with Gladys Knight, "And in time, I hope I'm worthy and forever grateful, changed by your love." When Perry asked me to give the reflection tonight, he said he didn't want me to talk about him. That's very unusual. Usually it's the first thing he asks for. He wanted me to talk about the Spirit of God and what happens in Pentecost. But I can't sit down without saying that for all the years that Perry has been in this parish, he has sought to do exactly what the Holy Spirit did, to change people, to be, like the Holy Spirit, God's agent of change and love. And so all the things that he has done in these years that you've been with him, you're all blessed to have had him as your pastor.